and welcome to Authors Promotion Show. Today we're going to talk about very exciting story, a fiction book, and that's called Tenure Denied. We have Dr. Ellenmorris with us, and she's actually as a founder and CEO of Tiegerman Schools, and she also has a doctorate in speech language pathology. Welcome to my show, Ellen.
Thank you. Thank you, Pentea.
I'm so excited to have you because usually I have only nonfiction authors, and this is the first time I have fiction. And that's interesting because I really love talking about past, and you say past regression. And I love Brian, that you always talk about it in your bio.
Yes.
Yes. Actually, Brian also worked with real case studies, right? So I'm not sure, is he still alive?
Yes, absolutely. He's very active. He has a clinical center in Miami. So he's, very much still in practice. I've emailed him several times. So he does lectures and seminars all over the country. So he's very much involved.
Yeah, great. So Ellen, tell me about yourself first. How did you become doctor of speech language pathology, and why did you choose that path?
When I was a child, maybe 6 or 7 years old, I was in a playground with my sister and my mother. And I was sitting with my mother, and my sister walked over to a slide. And she walked up, and I saw her fall. And she had a very severe traumatic brain injury. She was hospitalized for several weeks. She was unconscious. And when she came back, she had lost all of her speech. My family was destroyed, okay? She was the middle child, and my father decided that he was going to take her to different medical practitioners. And at that time, we're talking the 1960s now, there was very little to do for my sister. So one option was to hospitalize her and then to institutionalize her. And my parents were very opposed to that. And I can remember taking a trip with my dad up to an institution for my sister. And my comment to him was, don't send Susan there. Don't send her there. He borrowed money against his pension, and he bought all kinds of textbooks. And for the next 12 years, he worked with her day in and day out himself. And for the first couple of years, she didn't go to school. He worked with her every day that he came home from work. And when she graduated from high school, he said to me, your mother gave her her first life, and I gave her her second. And she went on to college, and she has a very full life. That was my lesson. I grew up having that experience, and it completely transformed my life. So when I was teaching at Adelphi University, and I met a parent who had a little boy, Jonathan Davis, and the mother was Toya Davis, she said to me, Dr. Tiegerman, I can't find a school for Jonathan. I went with her and we looked on Long Island, and we could not find a school for Jonathan. And I said, being very young and very inexperienced, Pentea, how hard could it possibly be to start a school? And I have learned over the last 40 years that it is very hard to start a school. but I started one in 1985 with Jonathan Davis and his mother, Toya Davis. And of course, Jonathan is now a young man and he has a very full life. He went to Howard University and he has a job working for Nassau County Parks. And I have 4 school buildings, 2 on Long Island and 2 in New York City, that basically provide educational services for children with autism spectrum disorders. And we serve about 600 to 700 families. In 2010, I decided, well, I go from preschool all the way up through high school. I think I would like to start adult services. And I did. I started day habilitation programs on Long Island and in New York City, serving adults. We also have several residences where young adults live and we take care of them 24/7. So it's been a fabulous, fabulous experience. And I owe my sister a great deal. And I owe my father a great deal because they both taught me a tremendous lesson about love and dedication. And that's how I got started.
Wow, I'm really impressed. That's amazing. Wow, I can't believe that you actually started building a school and now you have 4 buildings that actually dedicate to these kind of people. So your sister can talk right now, or?
Absolutely.
Wow,
My sister
wow.
is a physician in private practice. She's an endocrinologist, a great researcher, and she's had a very full life. She's married. She has several children. So her life went on, and it's really, my sister and I both owe my dad a debt of gratitude because he was really our first teacher. He taught us the lesson of love, persistence, and dedication.
Wow, you should actually write a book about her.
I should write a book about him.
Yeah,
he was a real, he was a
father.
character.
Yeah. And you know, I talk actually to so many PTSD warriors who had childhood trauma. And your story actually reverses everything, because the reverse side of it is that they actually traumatize at home, they don't see love, and later they will have a lot of problem in their life. So as you see, the other side of the coin is what your father did. Your
Yes.
father actually dedicated his time and energy with his daughter, and actually, he saw the success. And you actually was a very great pattern of what you did, having 4 schools and helping others grow in their speech. And I also talk to a lot of people with autism, ADD, right? And the same story, they have full life, and they actually, because they were considered as somebody who can heal, there were some people work on them and they have a life right now. There are lots of them educated, go to university, have a great life. So tell me about your book right now. I see that you talk about past regression, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
why are you interested to talk about past regression first? And then I'm going to know, to some extent, you believe in it? And do you have any true case study about past regression or what?
Okay, so I'll tell you how I got started with it. This goes back about 10 years. I was on vacation and I was very, very tired. I had just opened a high school, and I had a conversation with my husband, who basically recommended that I write a fiction novel about my experiences at the university. And I thought that was a ridiculous idea because I was so tired at the time. I couldn't imagine writing a fiction novel, but the idea stuck with me. And the title was his. He came up with the title, Tenure Denied. And the reason he came up with the title was because I was involved with the University Personnel Committee, which deals with tenure of professors, tenure and promotion, okay? And it's a very interesting, very unique process that professors go through when they review each other professionally for tenure and promotion. So I decided I was going to write it. I sat down and I put together an outline and I wrote a manuscript. But it didn't click. It just didn't click. So I left it in the closet.
So was it a fiction or nonfiction?
No, it was a fiction book. It was fiction. It was a murder mystery. It was fiction. It was about the university. It was a character, such as myself, who was a psychologist, who taught at the university and was on the university personnel committee. Same experiences that I had, right? And there was a murder on campus, right? But it just didn't click. So if I roll the tape forward a couple of years, I attended a lecture by Dr. Brian Weiss, who, as you know, is an eminent psychiatrist who specializes in past life regression. He's been doing it for 30 years, okay? As far back as I can remember, he's been involved with past life regression, and he's written many, many books on the topic, okay? So he was giving a week seminar in Rhinebeck, New York at the Omni Center. And I decided, this sounds really interesting. I didn't know anything about Dr. Weiss. So I signed up for this seminar and I went up to Rhinebeck, New York, and I was really intrigued by all of this. There were 125 therapists from all over the world. Some of them were very traditional therapists, psychologists, social workers. Some of them were psychics. Some of them were mediums. Okay, I had never really met that group before, but they were all mixed in together. And he had us do a group experience. Okay, so he gave us a set of instructions. Everybody goes into the center of the room and you tap someone and that person becomes your partner. Okay, now being a trained professional, as I have been, an academic for all the years that I've been in university, I'm very skeptical. Okay, but I went along with the program and I sat through several regressions. Now I was going to have a personal experience myself. And I walked into the middle of the room and a woman tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around and she introduced herself. She was from Brazil and she was a psychic. And we exchanged items. I gave her my glasses. She gave me her necklace. Okay. And I went first and I closed my eyes and I rubbed the necklace. And I said, I see this and I see this and I see this. And she said, stop. And I opened my eyes and she said to me, nope, it's not working. She said, you are resistant. I said, I'm resistant? She said, yes, you are resistant. You are resisting seeing things. Now I'm going to do a reading for you, she said to me. And she closed her eyes and she rubbed my glasses and she said, this is what I see. And the first thing she said to me was, I see your sister, Susan. I thought my face was going to freeze. I could barely catch my breath, Pantea. I'm telling you, I was so shocked. And she described a scene at a funeral, and she described who was there. She was right on the mark, right, exactly what happened. She described the priest. She described my sister. I couldn't talk. I was so shocked. And she said to me, "Am I right?" And I said, "Yes." And she said to me, "You are still doubting me." She said, "So I want to tell you that I see your brother-in-law, Daniel." And she walked away.
I'm really amazed, really surprised.
It was an amazing experience. Amazing. The whole week went like that. And by the end of the week, I had made a decision. And my decision was I was going to take out that manuscript. I was going to rewrite it. And it was going to be about past lives. And that's how Tenure Denied, a past life mystery, was born. It was born by that psychic experience and by that week that I had with Dr. Brian Weiss. I spoke to him every afternoon at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, I was the first one online to speak to him. Okay, it was amazing. The whole week was amazing. Okay, and the book is about a psychologist, okay, who's at a university in the Midwest, and there's a murder on campus, and she's part of the process of solving that murder by using past lives. Okay, and I am very interested in past lives because I had a past life as a teenager. I was in Greece, in Crete, and I had been on a tour. And we came to an archaeological site. And I had the weirdest experience, sensation, that I had been there before. And I knew where things were. Like I knew where things were located. I knew what it looked like. So I pulled away from the group, and I happened to be traveling with my brother. And I said to him, "I don't feel well. I need to sit down." And I sat down for a couple of minutes, and the tour guide came over, and she said to me, "Are you feeling all right?" And I said, I really don't feel well. I said, "But can you tell me something about this site?" And when she started to tell me, I asked her several questions, confirming what I knew. That experience, I pushed away and I did nothing with. I left, ran away from, until I had that week course with Dr. Weiss, because it came back. And it all, in a sense, completed a circle for me. The experience with the psychic, my childhood experience, and then writing this novel. So I am very interested in past lives.
So about your past life, you've been teenager in that past life. Did you know what happened to that life, or when it ended, or you don't remember that?
I don't remember that. I remember the place. I remember what was there. I remember the layout. I remember other people there, but I don't remember about my life and how it ended.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So about the past life regression, do you also do it with your, I don't know, you don't have any patient, you're doing something else like,
No,
yeah.
my practice is with children and adults with autism spectrum disorders.
Mm-hmm. So about the, Brian Weiss, is that any program that people can go there or have their past life regression or see what's happening to them? I don't know. Probably here in Canada or US, there are some people who doing it.
Yes,
Yeah.
there are a couple of things that your listeners can look for.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Dr. Weiss does a lot of seminars all over the United States, okay? And for example, he's coming to the Javits Center in New York, okay? I attended one of his seminars at the Javits Center there. So he's been there, and he's been to a number of other places, big cities all over the country. So you can Google him and look for his seminars, okay? You can get his books. His books are all listed on Amazon. Many Lives, Many Masters. Okay,
I read it actually.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Messages from the Masters, okay, is another one of his books. Only Love is Real is a third book that he wrote. So you can look for him and his books. The other thing is there are many therapists who do past life regression at this point. So there are a number of options in terms of exploring it personally to see if it's something that you'd like to go into and you'd like to see for yourself if you have a past life. The other thing I would suggest to people, because I'm very often asked this question, how do I know, that I've had a past life? And, there are several ways that you can begin the exploration process, okay? Number one, dreams, okay? Do you have regular dreams? How do you know? Well, you set an alarm clock, okay? I've done this myself, so it works. Set an alarm clock to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. Get up, keep a notebook by your bed, and write down all of the images, impressions, ideas, memories that you have from your dreams, okay? You're going to keep a diary. You're going to dialogue, okay, for several weeks, several months, and see if there are any patterns, okay? So that's the first thing, dreams, okay? The second thing is memories. Do you have any vivid memories of things? And this you need to think about. That's why I'm saying keep a diary, keep your notes, look for patterns. Do you have any extreme interests? Like, for example, Chinese art. I don't know. Do you know anything? Do you have an interest in languages, as a case in point? All right. Do you have a facility for languages? Maybe that fits into something else. Look for patterns, dreams, memories, interests. These are all ways to explore if you've had a past life. And the best thing to do is meditation. Okay, so I really recommend buying a book about meditative practice. Okay, now meditation is not something that you're going to accomplish overnight. This is something you have to practice. It's like exercise. I get up in the morning, I go to the gym, I exercise every day, same thing. You're not going to do it all the first couple of days, okay? It's something that you start off slowly, and you need to be persistent, dedicate yourself to doing it, because this is something that you really want to find out about yourself. So you're going to meditate for 15 minutes, then 20 minutes, then 30 minutes, okay? but there's a process, and it's not the end result here. It's not the end result that's important. It's really the journey that's important. So it's the practice, the way you relax, the way you feel about yourself. You're able to open your subconscious and follow your thoughts and find if you have a past life. You have it. You definitely have it, but you have to find it. Okay. And sometimes it takes people days, sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes it takes years.
And it's not only one, I've heard. Like you may have so many past lives, because I believe the total of energy in this world is the same. And so that's why we just convert from energy to substance, right? So that's why if the total is the same, so we go back and come back again. We go out and come back again. That's
Right.
about the past life, and that's about the perfection. I mean, every time we come to in this world, we have a purpose to accomplish, and something that in our past life we couldn't accomplish. So we come to this world to accomplish that mission. That's what I realize. And everybody can discover it. They can believe it or not. That's up to them again. So I have few questions. I'm really interested to know about the fiction books. First of all, how is different from nonfiction? Because nonfiction is more theoretical. You can have your own biography inside the nonfiction as well, which I did. Like I have my own personal stories in nonfiction, the rules of change for the better. But I never wrote a fiction book. So
Okay,
what is the structure for fiction book, and how we can start to structure it, to write it?
Okay, so I would compare, because I've written several academic books, okay? I would compare, an academic book to a nonfiction book. So there are certain historical data points, historical events in nonfiction that if you're going to write a nonfiction book, you have to pay attention to, okay? Because that's what nonfiction is all about, that you're talking about historical, factual events, okay? In fiction, it's a very different process. It's very open-ended. So for an aspiring author or a new author who would like to write a fiction book as compared to a nonfiction book, in a nonfiction book, I would write a detailed outline, like in an academic book. I write an outline. I pick out the key points that are historical or important events, right? And then I would add commentary to that based on my interpretation and perspective about those events. Not the same thing in fiction. In fiction, you sit down literally with a blank page, and that's what's so difficult and so open-ended and so overwhelming about writing a fiction book, because every morning you're going to get up and you're going to sit down to that blank page, okay? And it's a very creative experience, a very creative, open-ended process. So what I recommend to aspiring authors is you also write a general outline, okay? You give yourself a time framework to work within. So for me, what I used to do every day, okay, during this pandemic period, which is when I wrote and finished Tenure Denied, okay, is I would go to the gym in the morning. I would sit down for 2 hours between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m., okay? And I was very strict about the time, okay? Not a minute before and not a minute after, okay? I stayed in my time period, and I had to write so many pages. And I limited myself every single day to the time period and to the number of pages that I expected myself to write. To help me do this, okay, I wrote a general description of each chapter. So I had a chapter description outline, right, for the entire book. And then I sat down and I wrote, okay? And it gave me the structure. It gave me the time framework, all right? And it gave me the goal and the expectation of what I needed to do every single day. And I never missed a day. That's another thing, okay? I never missed a day. I had it. This was my time to write. I sat there and I wrote. When I was finished with my 5 pages, that was it. I closed my computer and I was done for the day. And I moved on to something else, okay? But I think you need to really recognize that there is a difference between writing something that's fiction and something that's nonfiction.
Actually, I remember I wrote some notes when I was a child, and it took me 2 years to finish a book. But I never found that book again because I never published it, but I used to write that story for 2 years. And I because I moved a lot, I moved from home country to Australia, then I came to Canada, I totally lost it. So you're right, but sometimes I remember I was in a mood to write and I had a lot of idea. Oh, I have to write this part, I have to write that part. But some days I couldn't write at all.
I understand.
I couldn't force myself to write because I had no idea. Like I was following my character in my mind and I was saying, where is she now? Okay, she's tired. She can't do anything. And sometimes I was like, oh, right. And that was interesting. I used to read those stories in a classroom before the teacher comes to the class, and everybody was there. Oh, what happened? I said, okay, I'll have to think about it tomorrow. I don't know. Sometimes we even don't have a clue what's going to happen to that character.
Right, exactly. Right. There are times that you don't know where you're going, where you're headed. And that's not a bad thing, because that's why I said this is a very creative, open-ended process. You know, it's I think part of the creative process is to be spontaneous with your writing. And I think you can do that, you know, but you need to allow yourself freedom to do that. So it's almost a relaxation experience that you sort of get into the writing process. And once you're there, you can really express yourself through your writing. And it's one of the most enriching things that I've ever done.
Exactly. And it's so satisfying because
yes,
you have something, it can't stay here. If you have to sit on the paper, like that's an addiction. And I have another question about something you said about the establishing schools. I also have another show for entrepreneurs, and it's so interesting to know how did you actually start establishing a school? Because it's, to me, so big. How did you create that? How did you start?
It's a very funny part of my life story. I went to see an attorney, okay, who specialized in educational law on Long Island. And he said to me, Dr. Tiegerman, let me give you some advice. I'm going to give you the 10 steps that you need to do, that you need to follow to open the school. You'll never do it. Stay at Adelphi University. And I took the list of 10 things, okay? I looked at them and I said to myself, well, I'm going to go from item 1 to 10, and I'm not going to look left. I'm not going to look right. I'm just going to do it. And when I'm finished, I'm finished. Okay. And I did. So this is what I did. The first thing, I went to a bank, and I needed to take out a loan, because on the list that the lawyer gave me, okay, is that you needed about $250,000. Don't forget, this was 1985. So you needed about $250,000 to float the school, okay, for about 6 months, okay, before the state came in to reimburse you. Okay, so you had to be solvent for 6 months, operate independently for 6 months before the state recognized you and reimbursed you. Okay, because there's always a delay in reimbursement as far as the state is concerned. Okay, all right. So I went to Chemical Bank, and interestingly enough, Chemical Bank has since closed, but they would not give me a loan because I had no collateral. And I said, but I'm your collateral. Me, I'm the collateral. Didn't work, no loan. So I went to see my parents, and I told my tale of woe, because that was the first thing on the list, financing. My father put up his house
Wow.
for $250,000, okay, and gave me the cash. Okay, so that was item number 1. I checked it off. I then went to Nassau County, and I saw the county executive, and I explained to him that I wanted to open a school, but I needed vouchers that had to be processed in family court. Could he help me get my vouchers into family court, okay, and have them processed? He helped me. Okay, item number 2, check off. Item number 3 is I needed space. So where was I going to get space? So I ran around to local school districts. Okay, nobody had space. I mean, school buildings are very precious, right? They're very specialized spaces. And I met with the superintendent in Great Neck, New York. Okay, he had an empty school building, which I went to look at. Okay, so I had $250,000 cash. My vouchers were being processed. I took a look at this building. I loved it. I took it. So item number 3, checked off. Item number 4 was I needed families, right? So I put an ad in a local newspaper. I took Toya Davis and her little son, Jonathan, with me, right? We had meetings with parents whose children had severe disabilities, okay? I introduced myself. I showed them the textbook that I had written, okay? So they had some, because after all, who am I, right? I mean, I'm coming from the university. What's my experience? You know, Dr. Tiegerman. Who is Dr. Tiegerman? There's no school. There's nothing, right? We're going to open in 6 weeks. So I met with all these families. Item number 4, checked off. Okay. And as far as the furniture was concerned, we went to secondhand supply houses. Okay. I had some of my father's money. We bought everything secondhand. I brought in a telephone from home and I plugged it in, right? And we started on a wing and a prayer.
Wow. Item number 4 checked out. Was it 5?
5. Item number 5 checked off, right?
Okay.
And I went down the list in terms of opening the school. So I have been around, right, in operation for 35 years. I started with 36 preschool children. I go preschool age 3 all the way up to age 21. So I have an elementary school, middle school, high school, and I also have day hab programs for adults. So I have a life continuum of services and programs.
Wow, that's going to be amazing, especially for my that show, Job Reinvented show. So I'm so happy talk to you. It was a long talk, but it really worth it. First of all, seeing a very exciting author who actually wrote a fiction book about past regression, and somebody who actually founded few schools to help others with children who have disabilities. And I'm really amazed with this story, very encouraging, and hopefully others can relate to this story. They just know that whatever you want, whatever your purpose is, you can do it. And your universe actually help you hand by hand to actually achieve those dreams. You just need to dream big and want what you want. It's going to be happen.
Pantea, thank you so much. And I hope you invite me back again.
Yes, for sure. We're going to have other talks together. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to Panta Calhoun Transition channel and order my book, Rules of Change for the Better. Tune up your mood and transform your life to reach your biggest dreams.